Hey, what is going on everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and today I'm going to be showing you all how you can jailbreak your compatible PlayStation 3 on firmware 4.84 or lower. This is all thanks to the updated PS3 exploit tools, so I want to give a big shout out to PS3 exploit team as well as Junie for all the hard work that they put into getting 4.84 tools working and compatible. So again, this only works on compatible PlayStation 3s. Right now, at the making of this video, the latest firmware is 4.84, and this will allow you to jailbreak your system on any firmware 4.84 or lower. We're going to do a few checks here, and there's also going to be a few things you'll need. First of all, you are going to need a PlayStation 3, and I'll show you all how to check if it's compatible here in a little bit. You're also going to need a flash drive if you're going to be using this method here, and we're also going to be using the PS3 exploit site. So we're going to need a computer to download and run a few programs, and we're also going to need internet access on the PS3. So now if we have all the tools we need at our disposal, let's go ahead, take a flash drive, pop it into your computer, and go to the PS3 exploit site. Once you're over at the PS3 exploit site, this is going to be linked down below in the description as well as all the other websites I'm using and downloading from. All you need to do is go to Flash Writer and click on Download MinVerChk and download this somewhere locally on your PC. I'll also have this link down below in the description for the SKU models, which we are going to be revisiting, but in short, if you have a fat system, regardless of what model you're on, you'll be able to jailbreak your system. If you have a slim, if it's a 2000 or 2500 series, you will be able to do it on a 2000. You might be able to do it on a 2500. We're going to check that. And if you have a 3000 or higher, so that means a 3000 series slim or a PS3 super slim, you cannot continue with this. But what we're going to do is, if you are just wanting to double check and make sure you're safe, or you're within this kind of 2000 or 2500 series iffy area, I would recommend doing this step here. First of all, when you download MinVerChk, just right click and extract it into its own folder. When you extract it, you should get a PS3 folder and an update folder, and inside of here, a PS3 updat.pup file. All you need to do is copy this file out and then go over to where your flash drive would be. Your flash drive must be FAT32 in format, so if it is not FAT32, you are going to need to back up any data you care about off this flash drive and then simply format it. So because I don't have any data I care about on here, I'm going to format this to FAT32, click Start, and that's it. And this will be fine for your PS3. So within your flash drive, you need to create a new folder called PS3. And inside of here, you need to create a new folder called Update. And inside your Update folder, you just copy in the PS3 updat file. It's about 5 megabytes in size, and this is going to be your minimum version checker. So that's what we're going to do. Once that's all set up, just eject your flash drive, pop it into your PS3, and let's try to perform a fake update. Once you're at your PS3, all you need to do is pop your flash drive in, go all the way over to the left, go to System Update, select Update via Storage Media, and it's going to say Version Check, so press OK, and when you get an error message here, it should tell you update data of version, and it's going to have your version number. And this version number represents the lowest firmware you can go on your system. So this is extremely important here, and this will make or break your PS3, quite literally. If you have any version here, this version number, if you have a version number of 3.56 or lower, congratulations, your system is compatible and it can run custom firmware, meaning that you can install custom firmware and continue on with this tutorial. If it says anything higher than 3.56, so that means if the version minimum here is 3.6 or higher, then you cannot continue with this tutorial, and continuing with this tutorial would result in you breaking your PS3. I'm stressing this here because several people skip past this on a Super Slim, for example, and then they brick their system. So this is extremely important. If the version number is 3.56 or lower, you're good. If it's anything higher than 3.56, you cannot continue with this. Again, I'll repeat it one more time. I'm really going to harp on this, but you need to be on version 3.56 or lower in this screen, if you have any version number which is higher than 3.56, you cannot continue with this tutorial. However, if you do have a higher version number than that, you can use something called HAN. I'll also have a video detailing that if you're interested. It's not the same as custom firmware, but it allows you to have some fun with your system. But anyways, we can confirm here in this video that the system I am using is compatible with custom firmware. So with that, all you need to do is press back, go to wherever you need to on the XMB, and then pull out your flash drive and pop it back into your computer. When you're back over at the PC, one thing we also should do now that we know our system is compatible, is we need to check and see what type of model it is. If it is a NAND or a NOR flash. That is going to depend on what exploit we're going to be using here. So the way you can tell is, first of all, if you are on a slim console, you are NOR. But if you have a fat system, you'll need to go down here and look for the model number. The model number can be found on the sticker on the back of your PlayStation 3, which has the model number there. And what you can do is look for the model number and then look for the flash. So for example, if you have a CECHC01, for example, you need to look for CECHC and look over here, and you're going to have a NAND flash. If you have anything, so just going alphabetically, G or lower, so CECHG or lower for a fat system, you have NAND. If it's H or higher, you're going to have a NOR system. This particular console I have is a CECHL01, so to check that, I would go down to CECHL, look in the flash section, and it has a 116 megabyte NOR, meaning I'm going to be using the NOR pages for this exploit. If you have the NAND pages, it's going to really be about the same, except it will take you longer. That's about the only difference. But anyways, once we confirm what model of system we have, as well as the type of flash on board, we can continue on with the rest of the downloads here. Now, the main two sites I'm going to be referring to are going to be the PS3 exploit official website, as well as this link on PSX Place. And this is going to be the release detailing the flash writer, and it's going to have a lot of really good steps right here. So if there's anything that you want to read on further, for example, here it covers supported models and such if you need to see that in writing, and of course if you need like an MD5, which we will need later, it has that all there. But there's going to be several things you will need to check on here. So again, if you're wanting anything in writing, it's available. And then if you're wanting extra Homebrew, this is all available as well. Near the end, I'm going to show you all how to install Homebrew, but if you're wanting anything else that is, suggested or essential as shown here, you can check the link here in installing Homebrew and look at all of this. So first of all, the downloads from the PS3 exploit site. First of all, go to V3 HAN Tools and go down to HFW Hybrid Firmware, because we are going to need to download this. We're not going to be updating to official firmware. We're going to be updating to a hybrid firmware here, regardless of what update you're on. So if you're on 4.84 or lower, you're going to be using these same steps. So in order to download this, you'll just need to go down below, and again, there's so much detail available here if you want to check this out. You need to click on the mega link here, and from here, simply click download. The next thing you're going to need are the flash writer files if we're going to be using the PS3 exploit webpage on the PS3. If you want to host this yourself, you're more than welcome to, and you can actually do this by clicking download release files on Flash Dumper and Flash Writer. But since we're just going to be using the site, what I'd recommend doing is going to Flash Writer 4.84 HFW, and click on download release files. I'd recommend just getting all of them here. Now you'll also need a MD5 checker. This is just to verify that the flash file we download is going to be proper and the same file that we need. So for this, all you need to do is use MD5 checker, WinMD5, whatever you're going to be using. They really all do the same thing. Download this, and we can just go ahead and download whichever one we're wanting to here. If you're on a newer operating system, you should really just be using this first one here. The next tool we're going to need is the Pi PS3 checker. This is going to allow us to verify that our dumps are proper on the system once we do this. So in order to verify this, just go to the GitHub link for this down below in the description, click on Pi PS3 checker, and then click download. We should also get a custom firmware while we're at this here, because we're going to need to install two firmwares essentially, our HFW and our CFW. The HFW is hybrid firmware, the CFW is our custom firmware, meaning we will be able to have our system jailbroken. So there's going to be a link for recommended custom firmwares, but for this, the one I'm personally going to be using, and dare I say even recommending, is going to be Rebug. So if you want to use this, I'm going to click on Rebug Rex CFW, and out of all these, you want to pick the CEX or the Rex variants. If anything says Dex or like DREX, for example, don't download that, but we're just going to be using Rebug Rex here for this. So you can click on this. It will lead you to another release page, which will take you directly to the rebug.me site. Once we're on the Rebug site, download the CEX variant. You want to get CEX for this system, so that will be Rex Cobra here. And all you need to do is go down as far as you can, and there's tons of details on this if you want to check them out. But either way, what we're looking for is the download sections, which here, Rebug Rex Edition or Rebug DREX Edition. Don't get DREX. Again, do not get a debug version. You can get the Rebug Rex by clicking on this file. And it's a little bit different on how to download it here. You should get a zip file for this. And once you open up this Rex file, if you're going to choose to follow along using Rebug, it's going to give you a text file inside, and inside that text file is going to contain the link to download it. So if anybody's getting confused on that over why it's so small or why it's not working, you have to extract the text file and then you have to follow the instructions in the text file. I'm not going to have the firmware directly linked, but I will trust you all to open that text file and download it. And finally, the very last download we can grab is some Homebrew. So again, if you're wanting to, you can go to the installing Homebrew section and pick what you're wanting. I'm just going to be using Multiman because that's normally the first piece of Homebrew I recommend people download. Just do some basic stuff on your PS3. All you need to do is go to Brewology, where it's linked to, go to Multiman, and download the base version right here. It does say 4.82, but it still works just fine on 4.84. Now, once everything's downloaded, you should have a ton of files available, and they're all going to serve different purposes. But the very first thing you should grab is this HFW file. This is a 7-zip archive, so you are going to need to have something that will extract a 7z file. For that, all you need to do is right-click, extract it into its own directory, and you should have your HFW right here. So for this, all you need to do is copy out this file, go over to your flash drive, PS3 update, delete the PS3 updat.pup file, and now paste this file into its place. Once you copy this over, just click on this to rename it to PS3 updat.pup, and that's about it for that. So that's it. It's just renamed as a standard PS3 update file. Now this is going to be necessary for anybody who's wanting to jailbreak using this method, regardless of what firmware you're on. Even if you're on official firmware 4.84, you have to download and install this HFW. So once that's been copied over, all you need to do is eject your flash drive and pop it into your PS3. Once you're back over at the PS3, there's a couple ways that we can install this. The first method is going to be doing this through a system update. So all you need to do is put the flash drive in, go to system update, update via storage media, press OK, accept this quick user agreement, and you can now just press X on the start button. At this point, it's now going to copy the update file over to your PS3, reboot and install it, and then reboot one more time. Once your PS3 restarts, congratulations, you should be on HFW. Now, another step which would be recommended, and this is also going to be the second way of installing here, everyone should do this just to be safe, but it would be to install HFW again. So go ahead, take the extra 5 minutes to do this, but I'm going to show you the second way of doing it. If you either want to do this the cleanest way possible, or if the previous method didn't work for you, we can do this by booting into recovery mode. Now, we're still going to need everything on hand, but we're also going to need a mini USB cable just to have it hooked up to your controller, so I'd recommend digging up one of those at this point. Either way, what we're going to be doing is turning off our PS3, and then we're going to turn it on by holding the power button until the system turns off, and then you need to turn it on by holding the power button again and release when you hear 2 beeps. I'm going to show you here in detail what exactly you need to do to get into recovery mode. So go ahead and hold down the PlayStation button, turn off your system, and let's get into recovery mode to flash this a second time. It might take a few tries, but once you get into recovery mode, press the PlayStation button on your controller that's hooked up, go down to System Update, press X, and here we do have version 4.84 HFW installed, so just press the Start and Select buttons. It's now going to check for the firmware, and it's now going to prepare your update by copying over to the system. So again, just wait a few minutes, it's going to reboot and do its own thing. Once it restarts in recovery, it's going to ask you to press the PlayStation button here, which you have to do. It will then check for update data and finish installing this a second time. Again, this is going to be recommended to do it twice just to be extra safe, and on top of that, this is going to be the preferred method if you're installing a firmware and you're having any issues that you might be running into. So whether you're doing this a second time or your first time isn't working through the XMB, just stick to recovery mode for your 2 flashes. Once you've verified your system has restarted successfully a second time after a second firmware flash of HFW, congratulations, you should be ready to continue and use PS3 exploits tools. The reason why we do that twice is just to help mitigate any type of system corruption down the line. So for this, all you need to do is take your flash drive, make sure it's plugged into the furthest right-hand USB port on your PlayStation 3, and then open up the internet browser. And we're just going to have to set up a few things on here. Once everything comes up, press the Start button, and the website we need to go to is going to be PS3 exploit without the E, so xploit.com. Just the standard PS3 exploit site. It will give you some kind of variation of a notice here, and you can just read that and press OK. And once that is all done, there's going to be a few links we need to bookmark. So first of all, go to the top left, go down to Flash Dumper, and for here, you need to pick Dump Flash to USB. And you need to select what type you're going to be using. So that's where, earlier in the tutorial, the flash type we determined from our model is super important, either NAND or NOR. Because I have a CECHL model, which is NOR, I'm going to press X on NOR. And if you have a NAND, it's the same thing. Just use the NAND option instead of NOR. But for me, I'm going to press X on NOR. It's going to say here that this requires 4.84 HFW to be installed. Since we've done that twice, press OK, and now press triangle, and we're going to bookmark this page, the dumper that you're going to be using. So here you can just go to triangle, and I'd recommend edit. I'm just going to call this dumper, or dump for short, so we can access it easier, and just press OK. So now that that has been closed or selected, I'm going to close window. Now that we're back at the PS3 exploit site, you want to bookmark your writer. So go to Flash Writer 4.84 HFW, write flash file from USB, and pick NAND or NOR depending directly on the model you are using for your system that you verified. Again, I have verified my console we're using for this video is a NOR model, so I'm going to press X on NOR. It's going to give us this notice. You can press OK, and now press the triangle button, and I'd recommend adding this to the bookmarks. And I'm going to edit this as well to, this can just be NOR Flasher, that's fine. So we can differentiate between the two. So the next thing you're going to need to do is, regardless here, clear out your browser history and such. So what you can do is press triangle, go to Tools, go down to Delete Cookies, say yes, Tools, delete search history, that's fine as well. We can delete the cache, And finally, I'll go ahead and delete the authentication history. And the other thing you will need to change is home page. Select use blank page and press OK. Now we need to exit out of the browser completely, and the reason why we did all that is because we want to have our specific writer and dumper available to us on hand, but we also want to boot up into the cleanest, quickest internet browser environment we can. So we just want all that available. But what you can do is press X to open up the browser. Once the blank page comes up, press triangle, go to bookmarks, my bookmarks, and select the dumper that you have checked. So again, right here, we're on 4.84 HFW, and this is the NOR flash memory dumper, which I'm going to be using. So again here, make sure it just make everything easier. Put your flash drive in the furthest right-hand port of the USB drives. This is going to be dev USB 000. If you picked another USB port, you're just going to have to differentiate by picking from here, but if you plug it into the furthest right-hand USB port, you'll ensure that it's dev USB 0. So all I need to do is press X on initialize exploitation and wait. Now, as a heads up, these steps are probably going to take quite a bit of time. As you can see, we're now doing our initialization. They might not even work the first time around, although that one did, but if you keep getting failures, just keep trying on this. That's what I can encourage you to do. But now, as you can see, since this exploit was successful, just click X on dump 16 megabyte NOR flash to USB, and at this point, if you have a LED indicator on your USB drive, it should be flashing. So just wait a few minutes for this. If you have a NAND variant of this, it's going to be about the same, it's just going to take longer. So once that's done, it should say the operation's completed, close out of your browser, and now unplug your flash drive and pop it into your computer. Once we have our flash drive available, you should find a dump.hex file, and it should be 16 megabytes, or it should be a couple hundred megabytes, about that much depending on if you have a NOR or a NAND PS3 respectively. So all you need to do is I recommend just cutting this out and put it somewhere safe. So I'm going to call this folder, for example, PS3 CECHL01 dump, and put your dump file there. And this is very important because at this point going forward, if for whatever reason you end up bricking your PS3, you're always able to restore it by getting a hold of a hardware flasher or sending your PS3 to someone who can open it up, attach a hardware flasher to it, and dump this file right here to then get your PS3 back to a working state. That's why it's important you need to do the dump, and that's why it's important you need to select the correct flash model. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this to dump_original because we're going to do a second dump later on. So now that we have all of that set up here, the next thing we can do is take a look at the NOR NAND writer release. So right click, extract this out, and inside of this folder, there should be a flash 4.84 hex file, and that is the one we're going to need. Don't use the JPEG unless you know what you're doing with that, and all of these pages here are going to be if you want to host this yourself, which we're not going to be doing because we're using the PS3 exploit site. But what you need to do is take this flash_4.84 hex file, copy it out, and go over to your flash drive and simply paste it to the root of your flash drive. And from here, we're going to need to verify the MD5 on it. In order to verify this, go back over to the PSX Place site, scroll down and find the MD5 here, and just copy this out as is because we are going to need that. Go back over to the files you downloaded and extract MD5 checker into its own folder. All you need to do is open up MD5 checker and click on Add right here, and navigate over to your flash drive. On your flash drive, after it's copied, select the flash 4.84 hex and open it. Once it's here, double click it, paste in the MD5, and as you can see, it should say same. If it says same, that is all good. That means that you have a properly working flash file sitting there on your flash drive. If this is not the same, and they have to be the same, but if this is not the same, you are going to need to just delete your existing file, re-download it, unzip it again, copy it back over, and then verify it. These have to be the exact same MD5 hash. If they are not, you do risk bricking your system. Now, once this has all been verified, what we can do is just close out of everything, safely eject the flash drive, and then pop it into your system. Because before we copy over any custom firmware, we're going to patch the system and then make sure it has been patched properly. Back over at the console, again, take the flash drive, pop it into the furthest right-hand USB port you have available, and open up your internet browser. Once the blank page is loaded up, press triangle, go down to Bookmarks, My Bookmarks, and pick the flasher that you have chosen. Now it should say 4.84 HFW warning here, which we know we have. And this should be it. So if you're using the USB version, it should just look like this. Again, the NAND version is going to be about the same, except it's going to be NAND. And right here, same as before, try to plug into the furthest right-hand USB port, so you're using dev USB 000. But if you have to use the other ones, you have to check them manually. So all you need to do is go down to initialize exploitation, and as you can see, mine was instantly successful. So now you can go to patch nor flash memory. Now again, this is going to be the point of no return almost, so to speak, so make sure you have a proper flash file sitting on your flash drive, you have checked it, and if you have, then you can just press X here, and it should now begin to patch your system. This will allow your system to then take the custom firmware once it's done. You might see your flash drive just flash for a few seconds and then stop, but even if it looks like it's doing nothing here, just let it do its own thing and wait for this to be successful. Now it will say the memory patch has been completed successfully, and at this point saying you can dump NOR and check that patch has been applied successfully, then reboot to enable the patches and install a custom firmware of your choice, which is exactly what we're going to do. So close out of the browser, immediately open it back up, and from here, we can just go to the dumper that we used before. You want to use the exact same dumper and do the exact same steps as before. That's why I told you all to cut the dump.hex file out of your flash drive, because we're going to be creating a new one. So this is now going to be our dumped version of the system's flash with the patches applied to it. Once that's successful, just like before, press X on dump and wait a few minutes here, and it's going to generate another dump.hex file onto the root of your flash drive. So now this has completed, you can just close out of your browser and yet again remove your flash drive and pop it into your PC. So once you're back over at your PC, you should have a flash drive that looks like this. First of all, we can just get rid of the flash 484 hex because we no longer need it, but this dump is now going to be very important. You need to just rename this to dump patched or something that is not going to be the original. I'd recommend copying or cutting this out, whatever you'd like to do. Go over to the folder where you have your dumps located or where you want to put them. So I'm just going to paste right here. So we now have our original dump, which is our working PS3, and our currently patched PS3 dump. The next thing I would recommend is copy out your patched version, not the original, go to PyPS3 checker, right click and extract it into its own folder. And inside of here, you can paste your patched dump, not the original one, the patched one. And for this, just drag and drop the hex file onto the bat, and after a few seconds, it should tell you this. This is what you're looking for. Number of dangers, 0. Number of warnings, 0. That means it's smooth sailing from here on out for installing a custom firmware. Your system has been safely patched. Now there is a quick note here that if you're doing this on a CECH 2500 Slim model, you might run into some false positives, but on all others, you should have 0 and 0 for dangers and warnings. Now with that being said, if you want to look at the log, you can press Y or you can press N. I'm just going to press N there because that's all okay. And at that point, we have now verified that our patched dump is proper and working. So the next things we can do are now going to be the final steps for actually jailbreaking our PS3. All you need to do is go back, take any type of homebrew you're wanting to copy, and I'd recommend just pasting it into the root of your flash drive. Now once that's completed, go over to whichever custom firmware you've chosen, copy it out, go into PS3, update, delete the current PS3 update file, and paste in the custom firmware of your choice. Once it's been copied over, just click on it and rename this from whatever it is to ps3updat.pup. And once that's all completed, just right click, eject the flash drive, and now pop this in for the final steps. Now, one very important thing, if at this point you have successfully patched your system and verified that it's all good to go, take your flash drive, plug it into your PS3, and do a system restart. Now, I've already restarted this system, but upon a successful restart, you should be able to simply go over to your system update, go to update via storage media, and it will now find your custom firmware. So at this point, you can just update like any regular update version. Just press X here and wait for it to load up the custom firmware. So from here, you can just accept this and go down to Start and press X. Now, depending on what type of model you might have and such, you might get kicked into a recovery mode, which I had done before on this system, depending on what you might have and a few other variants and such. If you're in recovery mode, I'll show you how to do that as well too, because it's really about the same thing. It might just look a little bit daunting, but regardless, if you have a successfully patched system, you should be able to continue. Once your system restarts, you should get to a screen like this, just like any other firmware update. Now just wait a few minutes for this to finish up after it's copied and set up everything on the console itself, and wait for it to reboot. So first of all, it might look a little bit scary. It is going to load up in 480p, and you're going to get this scary looking menu here, but don't worry, everything should work as normal. So hook up your controller, press the PlayStation button, and here it's going to tell you that your system software cannot be started. So here, make sure your custom firmware is on that flash drive, it is 4.84 or higher, and press the select and start buttons at the same time. It's now going to begin checking the flash drive to make sure the firmware is compatible. After a few minutes of checking, it's going to begin to prepare the update. Once your system reboots again, it should tell you the exact version number of the firmware you are installing. So as you can see, I have 4.84.1 Rebug Rex. Press the PlayStation button. It's going to check the data one more time, and from here it's going to give you another user license agreement, which is much shorter than the regular one. But you can just hit right to accept and press X here. It's now going to install the custom firmware and reboot your system one more time upon completion. Now check this out. Once you restart your PS3, you should be on your custom firmware. So at this point, congratulations, you are jailbroken. You've done it. That's about all there was to it. Just had to take a few precautionary steps and had to download a few programs, but in the end, this is what you should be seeing if you followed everything as is and checked everything and did this on a compatible system. Congratulations, you should be jailbroken. Now, depending on the custom firmware you're on, it might or might not be obvious of the changes you see. As you can see with Rebug, my PlayStation Network logo is red, and I have a few other options here. Now, the other thing that you should have regardless of which custom firmware you choose is going to be the package manager. From here, you can press X, and there's a few things I recommend you install. First of all, if you're on Rebug, go to Install Package Files, go to PS3 System Storage, and install this hidden Rebug toolbox. I recommend having this for any Rebug user. Now, the second thing you should install, or maybe the first thing depending on what custom firmware you've chosen, is go to here, your standard, and go ahead and select Multiman. So press X on that, and let this install. And I'm choosing Multiman for my first piece of Homebrew. That's what I normally recommend, but you could use whichever you're wanting to, whether you installed one piece of Homebrew or 5 pieces of Homebrew, what have you. Once you have all that set up, just go down to Multiman and press the X button to boot it up. Once this all comes up, just go ahead, accept all the agreements here. Once you read them, I've read them many times at this point just after installing it so often. Wait for this to initialize, and then we should see our menu come up here. So congratulations, this is now your first piece of Homebrew up and running on your jailbroken system. The next thing you can do, which I recommend to about everyone, is go over to Settings, and there is one specific feature I'm going to be looking for here, Theme Audio. Let's go ahead and disable that, so that way you get a bit more performance out of this and you don't have your music playing in the background and such. So there we go. That's about all we had to do on that. With that as well, you could also go to your system information, and here it should show your internal IP address, which is nice because you're able to do FTP using Multiman. So in the future, if you ever want to transfer files between your PC and your PS3 using your network, you can just open up Multiman, your IP address is here, and you'll be able to connect to it directly. But that's about it, so I'm just going to exit out of Multiman. Anyways, if you have followed this to the end successfully, congratulations, you should have a custom firmware PS3 with a few pieces of Homebrew on it. Anyways, this is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too. And again, one more shout outs to Team PS3 Exploit as well as Junie for all the work they put into making this point possible, where we are able to just run these little tools here and get everything set up easily enough without having to open up the system. Anyways, this is Mr. Mario signing off real this time. Later, everyone.